The seven-headed beast of Revelation. Who is the seven-headed beast of Revelation 12, 13, and 17? What do the seven heads represent? What do the 10 horns represent? In this video, we will delve into the Bible and history to find out exactly who this beast is and what it represents.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Did you notice that the crowns are on the heads in Revelation 12 and then move to the horns in Revelation 13? We will discuss this later and find out what this means. But first, let us find out who this dragon of chapter 12 represents. Can there be any doubt that these are the same beast power but in different stages of its history? Yes, it is represented as a dragon in Revelation 12, and as Revelation 12 verse 9 confirms, the dragon is that old serpent called the devil and Satan. But does Satan wage war against God's kingdom directly himself? No, he uses the kingdoms of the world. Thus, the dragon of Revelation 12 must also represent a kingdom, but we are also shown that Satan is the one ultimately behind it all. Who is the red dragon of Revelation 12? So, as we have already stated, the dragon represents Satan, but because Satan uses the kingdoms of this world to persecute God's people, then the dragon must also represent a kingdom. Now, to understand which kingdom, we must find out the context of Revelation 12. Revelation 12 verses 1 through 5.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pained to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne.
It is clear to all that this man-child who was born of the woman and whom Satan wanted to devour when he was born, see Matthew 2 verses 13 through 16, and then was caught up to God to sit at his throne, see Ephesians 1 verse 20 and Hebrews 8 verse 1, is none other than Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Also, as prophesied in Psalm 2 verses 7 through 9 and Revelation 19 verse 15, Christ was to rule the nations with a rod of iron. So there can be no doubt about the identity of the man-child. It is none other than Jesus Christ. But what about the woman? Some believe the woman to be Mary, while others believe the woman to be the Jews. But there is a big problem with both those interpretations, which we will see. The woman of Revelation 12 cannot be Mary for the following reasons. A woman in prophecy does not represent one person, but God's people as a whole. See Ezekiel 16 verses 26 through 32, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 2, and Isaiah 62 verse 5 for more regarding this. Also, verses 13 through 16 of Revelation 12 tell us that this woman was persecuted for a time, times, and half a time, which equates to 3.5 prophetic years, or 1,260 years, using the day for a year prophetic principle, and this happened after the cross, as verse 10 shows us. So was Mary persecuted for either 3.5 years or 1,260 years after the cross? No, there is no record of any such thing concerning Mary. So what about the woman being the Jewish people? Well, what is the description of the woman of Revelation 12? She is clothed with the sun and has the moon under her feet and has a garland of 12 stars. The moon represents the old Messianic dispensation which passed away in Christ, and the sun is a clear representation of the gospel dispensation, with the Son of Righteousness being Christ himself, see Malachi 4 verse 2, and the 12 stars representing the 12 apostles. Were the Jewish people clothed with the Son of Righteousness, Christ? No. They rejected the Prince of Life, therefore they could never be pictured as being clothed with the sun, and neither is there any record of the Jews being persecuted for either 3.5 years or 1,260 years. The woman of Revelation 12 can be none other than the Christian church. In other words, she is God's true people. Now I hear some say, no, that cannot be. Jesus was not born from the Christian church. But what many don't realize is that God has always had a true church throughout history, and they are His true people who live according to His will. And Jesus was brought forth as a man through God's true church people. The only woman who is clothed with the sun is the God's true people, His true church. So, who is the dragon? Well, we have seen that this chapter spans from the time that Jesus was to become a man. The dragon sought to kill this man child, Christ, and then go on to persecute the church. So, which kingdom did Satan use to try and kill Jesus as a child, and then actually crucify Jesus and later persecuted the church? Rome. There can be no other kingdom whom this dragon represents. So pagan Rome is the dragon of Revelation 12. 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, what about the 7 heads and 10 horns of the dragon? What do they represent? There are many people who believe the heads represent the various kingdoms that ruled the world before Rome, like Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, etc. Others believe the 7 heads to be various leaders or even various popes. But all of these interpretations are wrong, and I will show you why. Remember where the crowns are on the dragon as opposed to the crowns on the beast of Revelation 13? The crowns on the dragon are on the heads. The crowns on the heads mean that these heads are the ruling powers of the dragon, pagan Rome. Now, was Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, etc. ruling powers of the Roman Empire? No. These past nations had fallen long before and were no longer ruling. So the heads cannot represent any other nation in the past, as they are ruling heads of the Roman Empire.
The head of a kingdom is its king or government. The 7 heads of the dragon naturally denote, therefore, the 7 heads, or governments, which at different times have ruled over Rome, to wit, kings, consuls, decemvirs, dictators, triumvirs, emperors, and popes. The 10 horns represent the 10 kingdoms which arose from the division of Rome. The crowns being placed on the heads and not on the horns shows that the kingdom had not yet been divided. The 7 forms of government that have existed in the Roman Empire are usually enumerated as follows: 1. Kingly, 2. Consular, 3. Decemvirate, 4. Dictatorial, 5. Triumvirate, 6. Imperial, and 7. Papal.
So, the 7 heads of the dragon must denote the various forms of government that ruled the Roman Empire, as shown earlier. And the fact that the head that was mortally wounded in Revelation 13 verse 3 is the papacy, which we will show further in the video, proves again that the 7 heads are not other kingdoms of the past, or even popes, but the ruling governments of the Roman Empire. So what about the 10 horns? Revelation 17 verse 12 tells us that they are 10 kings. Kings can also be interpreted in prophecy as kingdoms. Now, if we take a look at the 4th beast of Daniel 7, which again is the Roman Empire, we also see 10 horns coming up out of that beast. And Daniel 7 verse 24 says that the 10 horns are 10 kings that shall arise. So these 10 horns naturally must denote the 10 kingdoms that the Roman Empire originally split into when it fell, which matches also the prophecy in Daniel 2 of Nebuchadnezzar's image with the 10 toes. Please make sure to read our page, The Prophecy of Daniel 2. It is very, very vital that you read this. I will leave it in the description below. Make sure to check it out. God bless. So, it is clear that the 7 heads represent the 7 forms of government of the Roman Empire, and the 10 horns are the original 10 kingdoms of Europe that the Roman Empire split into. First beast of Revelation 13. This now brings us onto the first beast of Revelation 13, which also has 7 heads and 10 horns, just like the dragon of Revelation 12. But on this beast in Revelation 13, the crowns have now moved from the heads to the horns, signaling a change in the ruling powers of the Roman Empire. But the fact that this beast of chapter 13 still has 7 heads and 10 horns, just like the dragon of chapter 12, shows that it is still Rome, but in a different form. Now notice what we see concerning this beast. Revelation 13 verses 1 through 2.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, and his seat, and great authority.
Who gave this beast its power, seat, and authority? The dragon, which is pagan Rome. So all we need to do is identify who Rome gave its power, seat, and authority over to be able to identify this beast of Revelation 13.
In 330 AD, Constantine removed his capital from Rome to Constantinople. The ancient city was left to the papal power, and the Pope occupied in Rome a throne higher than any occupied by the Caesars. Constantine laid the foundation of the papacy, but it remained for Justinian to complete the edifice in 533 AD, by declaring that memorable decree which constituted the Pope the head of all the churches. The popes filled the place of the vacant emperors at Rome, inheriting their power, prestige and titles from paganism. Constantine left all to the Bishop of Rome. The papacy is but the ghost of the deceased Roman Empire, sitting crowned upon its grave.
So, the Roman Empire gave its power and authority over to the bishops of Rome, and thus the papal church with the popes at the helm became the ruling power. And so, the first beast of Revelation 13 must be Rome in its papal form, otherwise known as the Roman Catholic Church. Why Roman Catholic Church? Because it is from Rome that this church got its seat, power, and great authority. This also matches the fact that one of the heads of the beast received a mortal wound. See Revelation 13 verse 3. Now, after the 1,260 years that was prophesied for papal Rome to wage war against the saints between 538 through 1798 AD, the papacy did receive a mortal wound when the French army marched into Rome, taking the Pope captive and stripping the papacy of its power. And the following attributes of the first beast also match the papal church of Rome. Number 1, the beast rises up out of the sea, see Revelation 13 verse 1, meaning it rises up among many nations, tongues, and people, see Revelation 17 verse 15. Number 2, the dragon gives the beast its seat and authority. See Revelation 13 verse 2. Revelation 12 confirms that the dragon is Satan and also the nation of pagan Rome. It was pagan Rome who tried to kill the man-child Jesus Christ. Number 3, the beast would receive a mortal wound which would be healed. See Revelation 13 verse 3, meaning this kingdom would be conquered at some stage and lose its power, but would then be revived into a power again. Number 4, all the world would wonder after the beast. See Revelation 13 verse 3, meaning exactly as it says, the whole world would follow after the beast, and the beast would lead the nations. Number 5, the beast continues for 42 months. See Revelation 13 verse 5, meaning it would rule for 1,260 prophetic days, which are 1,260 literal years, same as the little horn power. The papacy is the only kingdom that matches the sea beast perfectly. Number 1, the papacy rose up in Europe amongst many nations, tongues, and people. Number 2, the papacy received its seat and power from the old Roman Empire and ultimately from Satan himself. Number 3, the papacy received a mortal wound in 1798 when the French army marched into Rome and captured the Pope, and the papacy lost its control and power. But then in 1929, Mussolini granted state power back to the Vatican and the deadly wound began to heal. Number 4, is the world wondering after the Pope and the Papal Church of Rome today? Yes. Number 5, this is the same time as the little horn power, which is 1,260 years. The papacy ruled the world between 538 AD and 1798. But why is this beast like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion? These animals are the animals that represented Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece in Daniel 7, with the dragon representing the fourth terrible beast of Daniel 7, which was pagan Rome. The reason this beast looks like a leopard, bear, and lion is because Satan took the characteristics of all these previous kingdoms, bringing them into this one beast power, papal Rome, to wage his final war against God's people. Please see our page Prophecies of Daniel 2 and 7. I will leave it in the description below. Did you notice that the crowns have moved from the heads of the dragon to the horns of the first beast of Revelation 13? This is because when pagan Rome ruled, it ruled through its own forms of government, denoted by the crowns on the heads. But when the Roman Empire split into the original 10 kingdoms of Europe, the ruling power passed onto the various kingdoms, 10 horns, with the popes directing the affairs of those kingdoms, as we will see from the further illustration given in Revelation 17. So, it is clear that the first beast of Revelation 13 with the 7 heads and 10 horns is Rome in its papal form. The papal head, known as the Papal Church of Rome or the Roman Catholic Church, it was the papacy that received the seat and power from pagan Rome. The dragon, the beast of Revelation 17. In Revelation 17, God makes it even clearer regarding the dragon of chapter 12 and the first beast of chapter 13. Here, now in chapter 17, we have a picture of a woman riding a scarlet-colored beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. Revelation 17, verses 3 through 6.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written: Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
What have we learned earlier regarding the dragon and the beast? That they are the 2 phases of the Roman Empire. The dragon is pagan Rome and the beast is papal Rome. The dragon, pagan Rome, gave its seat and authority to the beast, papal Rome. And what do we now see in Revelation 17? A woman sitting upon a scarlet red colored beast. What was the color of the dragon of Revelation 12? Red. So in Revelation 17, God is giving us an even clearer picture of the Roman Catholic Church receiving her seat from pagan Rome. And what does a woman in the Bible represent? Ezekiel 16 verses 26 through 32, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 2, and Isaiah 62 verse 5 tell us that a woman represents God's professed people, the church. But this woman in Revelation 17 is a great whore, symbolizing that this is a great apostate church, which received its seat from Rome. And who is that? The Roman Catholic Church.
Then the mystery of iniquity changed the church from a pure woman to a harlot, and seated her on the beast. The beast had 7 heads and 10 horns, identifying it with the government of the Western Roman Empire, between AD 533, when Justinian published his decree, recognizing the head of the Roman diocese as head of the government of Rome, and AD 538, when the last obstacle in the form of a rival power was taken out of the way in Italy, the woman mounted the beast. Henceforth lordly Rome, which, like Babylon of old, had prided itself upon the fact that it was the master of the world, was guided and controlled by a prostitute woman.
But what about the heads where it says that 5 are fallen, 1 is, and another is to come? As we learned earlier, the heads of the beast are the 7 forms of government that ruled the Roman Empire, with the papacy being the last head. Now, if we take this verse from the day John wrote this, then the 5 fallen would refer to the 5 forms of government that had already passed in John's day, namely 1. Kingly, number 2. Consular, number 3. Decemvirate, Number 4, dictatorial. Number 5, triumvirate. These forms of Roman government had passed, and John was living in the time of the sixth head, imperial.
Kings, consuls, decemvirs, dictators, and triumvirs had passed away in John's day. He was living under the imperial form. 2 more were to arise after his time. One was only to continue a short space, and hence is not usually reckoned among the heads, while the last, which is usually denominated the 7th, is in reality the 8th. The head which was to succeed the imperial, and continue a short space, could not be the papal, for that has continued longer than all the rest put together. We understand, therefore, that the papal head is the 8th, and that a head of short continuance intervened between the imperial and papal. In fulfillment of this, we read that after the imperial form had been abolished, there was a ruler who for about the space of 60 years governed Rome under the title of the Exarch of Ravenna. Thus we have the connecting link between the imperial and papal heads. The third phase of the beast that was, and is not, and yet is the Roman power under the rule of the papacy, and in this form it ascends out of the bottomless pit, or bases its power on pretensions which have no foundation but a mixture of Christian errors and pagan superstitions.
God said concerning the heads, "Here is the mind that hath wisdom," in Revelation 17 verse 9, and it takes wisdom to understand the heads of the beast. It can be confusing to think that the beast has 7 heads, and yet the beast itself in its third phase of yet is, which is the beast in its papal form, is the 8th head and is of the 7. How can there be 8 heads when the beast only has 7? If you include the Exarch of Ravenna, then the papacy would be the 8th. But because this head, Exarch of Ravenna, only continued a short space, it is not normally counted among the 7 heads in the pictorial view. But Revelation 17 gives us a more exact, detailed account of the beast, which is why it mentions the papacy as the 8th head. As we have already mentioned earlier, the 10 horns are the 10 kingdoms of Europe that Rome split into, and these kings gave their power and authority to the beast when it transitions to its papal form of government. Thus we have the picture of the whore sitting upon the beast, because it was the Roman Catholic Church who received her seat from the Roman Empire. So, who is the 7-headed beast and dragon? It is the Roman Empire in both its pagan and papal forms, including the nations that Rome split into, who also give their power and authority to the papacy to fight against God's elect. The dragon and red beast can also be associated with paganism, and this is covered over with a Christian garb in papal Rome. It is a sad fact that even though God has revealed the Roman Catholic Church to be the whore of Babylon and that Antichrist beast system, revealing her horrendous crimes, including killing the saints of God, see Revelation 17 verse 6, millions of people still wander after her, see Revelation 13 verse 3, and the churches that once separated from her, knowing who she was, have now returned in open communion with their mother. See Revelation 17 verse 5. But God is sounding the warning and is calling his people out of Babylon, out of the fallen churches who have made that unholy union with the civil state. Will you heed the call? Revelation 18 verses 1 through 4.
And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues.
Please, brothers and sisters, make sure to go read our pages. Make sure to read them with an open heart and a willingness to learn and in prayer. They will be in the description below. Who is the whore of Babylon? And come out of her, my people. Brothers and sisters, we are living in a serious time. We need to heed the call. I also created a video about the whore of Babylon and come out of Babylon, my people. Make sure to check that out also. God bless. If you haven't seen Media Monopoly, mainstream news is all scripted, turn it off video, make sure to go watch it. It is time to turn off the mainstream scripted news and turn on the real news. Visit our site news page, which I will leave in the description below. Please subscribe to our main YouTube channel, End-Times-Prophecy, and hit subscribe and get notifications. Also, our backup YouTube channel, please subscribe to that as well. Hit subscribe and get notifications. Also, on the main YouTube channel, you have a link to our website, which has end times news updates, mass animal deaths, and health news, health message, amazing Bible truths. Please read these, go through these. These are very, very important. And also, you can go check out our Facebook page, which also has a lot of good, amazing information. Please check that out. Thank you for watching again. Sorry for the pop-up. Thank you for watching again. God bless. God bless. God bless. Thank you for watching. I pray this message has opened your eyes. Please make sure to read the links in the description and check out these amazing Bible truth videos. For more amazing Bible truth / Bible studies, go to end-times-prophecy.org. The link will be in the description below. God bless.